Hello, how are you today? So I hope you had a great Thanksgiving. I know I have a lot to be thankful for around here. Everybody's in good health, everybody's doing well. So today we're going to talk about art style. And art style and branding kind of go hand to hand if you are an artist and also a business. But we're just going to talk about art style and not really get into like branding or personal branding. Although I will say that art style as like a creative entrepreneur is kind of part of your branding. Like I pretty much lean on it really heavy. And you can too once you have your style down. So we're going to talk about what a style can do for you. So a style can make you feel confident. Like when I look at my portfolio, I feel really good about it. It can also bring you a lot of opportunities. Like if a business or like I had somebody hit me up the other day to do part of a children's book. So they were doing, I ended up turning it down, but they were doing, a different artist for every letter. And I got to like pick a letter and, design it however I wanted to. I turned it down because it was a free gig. And I was like, sorry, I only take paid gigs, which I was kind of sad because that sounded cool. But anyways, so if you have a defined style, like my style, people repeatedly tell me is very like, oh, it belongs in a children's book, or it's, something my kid would really like, or I want you to do a mural in my kid's room, something like that. So if you have a certain style, you will get certain opportunities. And that's like a type that I get all the time. If you do like really botanical, realistic work, you might get opportunities to do work for like science or herbal medicine journals, stuff like that. So it can really bring you awesome opportunities that you actually like and not like opportunities that you're like, I don't know where that came from. Because if your style is all over the place, somebody can see just one piece that you do and assume that that's like your favorite type of work. Whether or not you liked it or not, that's just what people will think. So it can also really give you an audience that likes you for all of your work and not just for like one piece that they saw that you posted the other day. So when you have a consistent style, people will like you consistently. You'll have like an audience that follows you specifically for your work. Like I have people who really like the cute but dark kind of thing that I have going on. Have you ever looked up like on Pinterest, like pastel goth? I feel like I attract a lot of like pastel goth people, which I love actually, but I was more of a traditional punk rock kind of gal myself. But I do love the new age like pastel goth, and I feel like I attract that type of audience. I also attract a lot of, artists and stuff because they talk about educational stuff like this. But if you have like a steady style, you'll have a steady type of person who's interested in your work. So that's honestly a big plus because when you're marketing, you know who you're fucking talking to because if you're talking to everyone, you're talking to no one. So you have to have somebody to talk to, basically. So yeah, it can really just help you with all of the things. And it makes you feel better. I feel way better now that I have like a consistent style. It's easier to create things. I feel like I never get artist block ever because I'm not overwhelmed by all the options that I have. I feel like when you are, you have no clue if you want to do realistic, if it's gonna be black and white, if it's gonna be pencil, paint, oils, mural, spray paint, whatever. Like you just don't even know what direction to do. You have no clue what mood you're in. So at least that's how I felt when I didn't have one. I was just like lost all the time. Um, but now I just feel like when I'm ready to paint, I can get out my specific things that I use every time. I can just sit down and, it's easier to make something. So what is a style exactly? A style is pretty much just consistent choices that you make in your work. And the key is consistent there. So if you make big, bold lines in your work and you do that consistently, that's part of your style. If you always use like cross-hatch textures in your work, and that's a choice that you make every single time, or at least, all of my trees are cross-hatched, or all of my like, characters that I draw have blush, like even the men, like everybody has blush on. Like that's a consistent choice that you make and it becomes part of your style. And your style should feel comfortable to you. You should like it. If you don't like it, definitely it's not your style. There is a part of it that's natural and something that you really can't avoid. Like for me, I've never really been able to do like super realistic stuff. It's just not, it doesn't come natural to me. And if I wanted to, I could maybe practice and force that to be true for me, but I have never really wanted to put that much work into it. So I let what comes natural to me just stay with me as well. But not all of it comes natural to you. Like it doesn't come natural to just like decide to only paint cool tones and to really only like purple, green, and blue. You know, like that's not natural. That's something that you choose to do. And I notice that when I choose to do that every time, I like my work more. Other people like my work more. They know what to expect from me. And it feels like home. So like it should really feel comfortable to you. And it should just be a choice that you consistently make. So basically, how do you make an art style? Well, there's some things that, like I said, you already have as part of your art style and pretty much will never go away. And that's great because you don't want your work to look like everybody else's. You want a little personal touch in there. You want something to be just for you that no one else can replicate. And that's honestly true for everyone. If you think that your art sucks, I'm sure you're just comparing it to someone else. Sir, quit barking, Bum. Sorry, my dog is barking. A lot of neighbors around here. Bum, come here. Sit down, please. Sit. Sit. Good boy. Yeah. So anyways, sorry. What was I saying? Yeah, so you have to choose certain rules for yourself. You have to choose certain rules for yourself, and that's going to be in a couple different categories. Like for instance, I will focus on today, for the sake of time, a couple different categories. So we're going to go with subject matter, texture, medium, color palette, and line and shape. So make choices that you like, and you can always tweak them later. So if you make a choice and you decide you hate it, you can always redo it. But line and shape is like, do you make thick lines or are they thin? Do you make sharp angles or do you make rounded edges on everything? I tend to go with more like rounded edges. All of my clouds are very bubbly. You know, I feel like my faces are very round. Everything is like, even when I do elbows, like they're never pointy. They're always kind of rounded off. And I mean, whichever you choose, it's really not right or wrong. It's just whatever you want to do. And my lines are very, I actually used to have really, really thick lines, thick black lines. And I kind of have gone back on that, except for when I do text work. Then my lines are like thick black lines still. But now I kind of shave my lines off and don't really draw lines in Photoshop anymore, and kind of just leave like the edge of the watercolor paint to be my line. So I don't even really have lines anymore. So it can evolve over time if you wanted to. I have hot water in there. And then for subject matter, this is something that I kind of didn't really put any rules on myself because I don't know, that's something that really is creatively fun for me. So I have really strict rules in other aspects of my artwork, like color. I only use like a certain amount of colors, like cool colors or neutral only. And that's something that I really, really love, but I wanted it to look consistent without having to restrict what I draw. So I wanted to draw people, men, women, whatever, animals, umbrellas, teacups, just whatever I felt like, because that's where art becomes fun for me. But some people are like portrait artists only. Like they only do faces, they only do people they know, and that's cool too. If that's what you want to do, that's what you want to do. If you're a dog artist, a pet portrait artist, like that's your thing, go for it. But I wanted to be able to draw whatever I wanted to draw because that's what's fun for me. But I do have really strict rules in the other parts. So if there is not a background, then the background is going to be white. And that is really specific for me too. So there's little touches that you can do that are part of these like 5 main categories, like color and everything. My medium which is actually also helps my texture, is watercolor. And a lot of the texture that I use is because of my medium. So they're kind of intertwined in that way. So if I leave any blank space on my sketching, if you've ever seen like my sketch work, a lot of it is just empty because I plan to just fill it with watercolor and leave that as the texture. Or I'll do mixed texture things like my pine trees, if you've ever seen them, have like a watercolor background, and then I'll put little dashes all over them as like a 2 texture item. And every time I do a pine tree, it looks like that. And it's always, you know, like a deep green color with a lighter or darker little Photoshop dashes in there. And honestly, if you want to look at my portfolio, you can see my style right away, but it's easier when you pick it apart into little categories because it's easy to see someone's work and be like, oh, they have such a defined style and it looks so good and it's so easy for them. Like, wow, wish it could be me. And, but if you can't figure out what makes their style a style, it's going to be hard for you. So when you pick apart each part of your painting like this, it becomes a lot easier. So what I would suggest you do is to just look at a piece that you've made, or maybe a couple of them, and say, what choices am I consistently making? Do you always use the color red? Do you always make a thick outline when you draw and you can see it at the end finish? Do you always make it completely digitally and it's like super flat looking? You know, what do you do every single time that makes it look like yours? Is it the way that you draw? Do you draw heads that are way too big for their body like I used to do and kind of still do? Like, that's okay. If that's your style, that's your style. Just roll with it. Just roll with it. And once you feel confident in it, and once you do it repeatedly, it won't feel like, oh, that doesn't look right, or it looks bad that her head is too big all the time. It'll just be your style. And when people scroll through your Instagram page and they see, oh, she always draws the heads like that, you know, they'll know that you mean to do it like that. It's not like, oh, she doesn't fucking know her proportions. It'll be like she does it every time because she likes it that way. So, and as long as you actually like it that way, then you're successful. You're doing it right. So what can you do if you look at your art and everything is a different medium and everything is a different texture and nothing looks like it's from the same artist? What should you do? Well, I would pick your favorite painting. What is the favorite one that you've ever made? And I would just take, you know, what do you like about it? And I would try to apply that to every other thing that you make. Because that's pretty much what I did, is I would look at what do I like from my own and pick what, like, you know, specifically, you know, line, shape, texture, subject matter, you know, all of that. What do I like specifically about it? And then just apply it to every other painting that I do. And if you end up not liking it or you get sick of it, then change it. Change the rule. But there have to be rules and you have to follow them, which sounds very annoying, but you make the rules. So you can change them if you want, and you can have as little or as many as you want. And I think that's the greatest part about having a style, is that you set the rules, but you do have to follow them. So I would just, you know, and if you don't like it, say, oh, I hate my art, I hate everything about them, then look at what other artists do. Say you find something online and you love it. What do you like about it? You can say, oh, I like everything. Okay, well, I like everything about all the work hanging in my house right now, but I don't want to make art that looks exactly like that. For one, I probably can't. And for two, that would be super boring. So cherry pick certain things from other artists and kind of like combine it into your art. And of course, this isn't really copying or stealing because it's from multiple different artists. And there's always that little angle that you really cannot get rid of in your own art. You know, just your sleight of hand or your handwriting or the way that you hold the pencil will make it look different. So don't worry about that. Never trace. Please stop tracing unless you're tracing your own work. Really just practice without tracing. Don't trace other people's work. That's just my stance on that. Just look at a picture of it. If you need a reference, that's great. Use a reference. I use them all the time. Don't trace, because that's stealing, and that just honestly isn't really going to help your art style as much. Like, I used to do that when I didn't know how to draw like a human or didn't know how to draw a hand. I would trace it first and then try to do it myself. And honestly, I would have just learned faster if I would have never traced it all, if I would have just attempted it by myself. So just don't trace. But you can cherry pick from other people. What do you like? I like that she doesn't have any lines in her work. You can never see any, her line work. You can't see. It's kind of blurry. It's a little bit muddy. Like, that's cool. Keep that. If you like that they have crisp edges, keep the crisp edges, but make it your own. And I promise it won't be that hard to make it your own. It's kind of unavoidable. So, and when you are successful in having a style, you'll know it because you'll have a mood or a vibe that goes with all of your pieces, and you'll have an audience. You'll realize that you're attracting like all the same people, which is great because those are your people. And if you are attracting a lot of people that are similar and you don't like them, maybe you should change your subject matter. Like if you're making a lot of like BDSM or like satanic, I follow this guy and he makes like a lot of like satanic work or whatever, and he attracts a lot of people who are into that. And if you're not into that, don't make that kind of art because that kind of people are going to follow you. So just be mindful of like what you're making, because what you put out is what you'll get back. So just be mindful of that, because it's your company, it's your brand, it's your business, it's your art style. And if you want it to feel like home, it has to be something that you like, and you have to like those kind of people too. So, and I also believe that you don't just find your style. Like when people say, oh, find your style, and I'll write like, find your style. You don't really find it, you make it. Like that's something that you consciously choose to do all the time. Like you have to set those rules. Yeah, and I actually think I want to make a course about this, like a little class. I know a lot of artists, and I think it's Peyton in here. I think Peyton is the one who does like workshops and classes and stuff, which I looked at them and they're really cool. But I think I want to do online at first probably, and then maybe in person if people seem interested, classes on how to find your art style, which I think I've talked about this before, but it's just like one of my favorite topics, honestly. I think it's very interesting. I think your style says a lot about you. And if you don't have a style, I think that says a lot about you too. If you're one of those people who don't want a style, or you think a style is restrictive, I would just ask you to challenge that, because I think having a style has opened so many doors for me, and it's not restrictive at all, because every piece that I make that follows the style is like my favorite piece. Like every piece is my new favorite, because every rule that I set for myself is something that I like. It's my favorite choice. Like I love art I guess I love art that's different from mine too, but I don't know. There's something about knowing what you like and expressing it and just having it look like perfect, So I do not think it's restrictive. I do not think that it limits you. I don't think that, if you're doing it as a hobby, go ahead and just be willy-nilly about your style. But I just think that the most successful artists have a style. Like they are recognizable for their work. Like when you see a piece of their work, it's them. And I don't know, I just think that opens so many doors in business and just free work. If you want to do free work, even if you're just a hobbyist, like I could have had my book, my, artistic letter in this children's book for charity or whatever that lady was trying to get me to do for free. Like, even if you're doing it as a hobby, like that would be cool. Of course, I'm trying to make a living over here, so I had to say no. But I just feel like it really opens doors and it's not limiting. So if you think that it's limiting, I would really just question why. And I think it's just because you don't know what your favorite thing is. Because if, I know what my favorite way to have coffee is, and I have it like that every fucking day because it's my favorite way. Why would I do something that's not my favorite? Why would I do that? So I would just challenge that. So an assignment I will give you right now is, even if you think it's dumb to have a style, please just humor me. Find one rule that you would like to set in your art. Like, you don't have to come up with a whole style right now, but just find one rule that you will make. So if it's going to be like the colors palette, set yourself a color palette, or there will be red in every single painting, at least one thing that's red in every painting. Or I will leave, like, some people will leave like little private symbols to find in their artwork, which I think is so cool. Like, how some directors or movie creators will like have an appearance in their movie. Like they'll just be some guy on the street passing by, like a super insignificant role, but that's like their mark on every movie. Like if you have something like that in every painting, like there's a 4-leaf clover in every painting. Like I think that shit is super cool. That can be part of your style, that can be part of your rules. Just find something, just one thing that you want to do and just try it out. If you end up hating it, or if it makes you bored and you get bored and you don't want to make the same shit all the time, then don't. But I just really think that you should, and at least try it. So yeah, that's all I really have on it today. If you would be interested in doing a class on it and maybe exploring or having me help you explore which textures you like, or showing you some examples of different textures, examples of different color palettes that you can maybe choose from if you just really don't know where to start. Like, would you be interested in maybe a class on that, or even like a worksheet or something? Because I know that that was like one of my biggest struggles, and it really just made me feel not confident when I didn't have a style. And now that I have one, I just feel like on top of the world. So I don't know. If you'd be interested in that, let me know. Otherwise, that will conclude today's chat. Thanks for hanging out. And tomorrow's Work in Progress Wednesday, as usual. I think I have to start a new painting today. I'm not really actually working on anything, so I gotta get to it. It's only 2:30, so I've got some time. Yeah, so thanks for hanging out. Thanks for bearing with my barking dog. And I will talk to you guys later. Cheers.